it's Monisha
and Shirley from Make It Shine, the Money Podcast.
On today's podcast, we talk about the 10 best and most affordable places to retire in the world.
I want to retire in all of them. Keep listening to learn more.
This is not a lie. Yeah, I'm gonna make it shine, make it shine, make it shine, make it shine.
Shirley, this is our 31st episode
Yay.
of Make It Shine Money across 2 seasons. Can you believe it?
I know, time flies. We recorded our first episode 2 summers ago and then didn't release it for months. And then we released it and then recorded 15 more and still didn't tell anyone about it, other than our closest friends, of course. And so it took some time for us to get used to the idea that people are listening.
I know, me too. I mean, the biggest change this year, though, is that we've started sharing the podcast with our network, and they're sharing it as well. So thank you all for your support. We love getting messages and ideas from you. And not just in Canada, we see listeners from the US, India, Singapore, Australia, and more.
And we took a big leap this past week. And I'm really proud of us.
Yeah.
We posted our first videos on TikTok. And my God, Monisha, I will never look at another TikTok video and not visually break down all the steps the creator had to take to set up the shot. They had to script it, record it, probably redo it a bunch of times, edit it, and then finally post it.
I know. When we filmed our intro together, the message, it's all we're doing is saying hello. And the whole thing is like less than 30 seconds. I think we shot it 10 times, 20 times. I don't know.
Probably more. We didn't even know where to look to film.
I know.
That alone took a few tries. We were like, okay, look at the top of the phone. No, look at the green light. No, look at yourself.
I know. But as usual, we persisted. We definitely laughed a lot. And now it's easier, right? More comfortable, I guess. And the tricky part is figuring out this TikTok algorithm.
Yes. So friends of the podcast, if you're on TikTok, please give Make It Shine Money a like and follow. We're trying our best to package our money tips and ideas into small bite-sized videos.
Absolutely. I look forward to our TikTok adventures together. So, all right, let's move on to today's topic. We're going to discuss the best and most affordable places to retire in the world.
So a study released by International Living in 2023 asked Americans that are retired overseas to score the following 10 categories out of 100.
Okay.
The categories are housing, benefits and low-cost perks, visa and ease of residence, cost of living, cultural assimilation and entertainment, quality and accessibility of healthcare, development, climate, government stability, and opportunity to semi-retire.
We also did our own research outside the study, and we used Numbeo.com to compare what common everyday things cost to help level set. And we're going to use the US dollar as a currency when we talk about these costs to compare the top places to one of the most expensive. One of my favorite places, New York City.
Yes. So starting with Thailand, who ranked number 10 on the list. And on the subcategories, for housing, they scored 62, healthcare 76, cost of living 96, and climate 58.
Oh, I'm surprised climate is 58. I mean,
yeah.
I guess that's because of the monsoon and I guess the tsunami season.
Yeah.
But other than that, it's a great place to be. The food alone should be 100. Food is amazing.
It's a subcategory.
Shopping is so good. I mean, there's tons of things to do and see. Remember we were there? It's one of my favorite trips.
It's also close to a ton of really awesome countries, and they have multiple discount airlines. So you could fly into nearby places like Indonesia, Malaysia, Vietnam for as low as $100.
Oh my God, that's such a steal. So yeah, a few comparisons of everyday costs. And remember, we're quoting all of these currencies in US dollars. So compared to New York City, Bangkok, which is the capital of Thailand, is very popular, very busy city. A 12-ounce bottle of Coke costs around $2.50 in New York, and it's 56 cents in Bangkok. And a one-bedroom in the city center of New York City is easily over $3,500. Versus in Bangkok, that's only going to cost you $650. That's crazy.
Oh, wow. That's a huge difference. I'm adding it to my personal list. Okay, the next country ranking in 9th place is Italy. So they scored for housing 62, healthcare 80, cost of living 88, and then climate is 70.
So they ranked higher on healthcare and climate versus Thailand, but Thailand wins on cost of living. So I don't know, Shirley, I can retire happily here too. I love Italy. I love Rome, Florence, Venice, Milan, anywhere. Just put me there.
I know, me too. So the same bottle of Coke costs $1.87 in Rome versus $2.50 in New York City. And the one bedroom within the city center, you said earlier, was about $3,500. And it's $1,100 in Rome. So it's 253% cheaper to rent in Rome.
Oh my God, that's crazy. I love it. Okay, in 8th place, we have France. And I'm actually really surprised to see it here because normally I wouldn't associate Paris, for example, with being known as an affordable place.
Yeah, you're right. And it's definitely not as affordable as Italy or Thailand, but it's not bad at all when you look at the numbers. So they scored for housing 64, healthcare 84, cost of living 56, climate is 82. And let's pick on Paris. A bottle of Coke in Paris is $3.30 versus $2.50 in New York. So that's really expensive. But then if you look at housing, a one-bedroom within the city of Paris is only $1,400 versus $3,800 in New York.
I think what this means is that New York City real estate is totally overpriced.
It is. I mean, we live in Toronto, and it's one of the most expensive places to live in Canada. And when I do the same comparison between Toronto and New York City, a one-bedroom in downtown Toronto is going for about $1,800 versus $3,800 in New York.
Wow, okay, so that's true. Okay, let's get back to this list because at this point, I don't want to retire in New York City or Toronto. So number 7 is Greece. They scored housing 70, healthcare 82, cost of living 84, and climate 68.
I visited Athens before and I loved it. So I'm really happy that it's on this list. I would go back in a heartbeat. So a bottle of Coke there is $2 versus $2.50 in New York. And the one bedroom in the city center of Athens is $555 versus $3,800 in New York. Okay, so that's the biggest cost difference we've come across so far. Almost 600% more to live in New York.
I think most people would retire and not live in the city center, though, especially when you have the Greek islands as an option. So living on the islands outside the city might actually cost more. Corfu is super popular for retirees.
Yeah, so using the same site, Numbeo, to pull the data, it's $454 for a one bedroom in Corfu city center. So it's actually even cheaper than Athens.
Oh, wow, that's incredible. I'm so excited. Okay, let's keep going. In 6th place, we have Spain. They scored housing 56, healthcare 88, cost of living 79, climate 72. So it seems like the housing is a little bit pricier here.
Yes, so a one bedroom in the city center, so let's use Barcelona as an example, it's about $1,200 versus $3,800 in New York. So it costs 225% more in New York. So still a big difference, and a bottle of Coke is $2 versus $2.50 in New York.
Love it. My friend's family actually has an apartment in Malaga in the south of Spain. This is where Picasso's from. And they actually go for several months of the year. And the rest of the time, they just rent it out as an Airbnb.
That's a great plan. I would love to be able to do something like that too. Okay, making our way down the list, in 5th place is Costa Rica. So this is probably the closest destination to North America so far. So for housing, they scored 60, healthcare 91, cost of living 68, and climate 80.
And the best part, I think, also about Costa Rica is it's similar time zone. So if you're doing some kind of, freelance or some sort of work in your retirement, you don't have to worry about time zone that much. My friend's actually been making plans to retire in Costa Rica quite actively for the last few years. I'm not surprised at all this is on the list. It's beautiful if you see the photos. And a bottle of Coke here is $1.83 versus $2.50 in New York City. A one bedroom in the city center is $686 versus $3,800 in New York. So huge savings already.
Yes, there's about 70,000 American expats. Most of them are retirees in Costa Rica, so it won't be difficult to find a community, and many services for expats are already set up for you.
In 4th place of the best and most affordable places to retire is Ecuador. So they actually rank high across all 4 categories: housing 80, healthcare 81, cost of living 88, and climate 87.
Yeah, and a bottle of Coke in Quito, Ecuador is 81 cents compared to $2.50 in New York, and the rent for the one bedroom apartment is $460 versus $3,800 in New York.
So I actually was really lucky to go to Quito. I went there a few years ago, and I ran into so many couples. These are Canadians that were retiring in Ecuador. And what they had done is they had put a lot of their savings into dividend-paying ETFs. And so they actually were just living there, on the coast, and then, using the money. Because in Ecuador, you can go to the Amazon rainforest, you can take a plane, you go to the Galapagos Islands, or you can go to Quito. It's really great. So yeah, a lot of people actually were just enjoying it and having a great time. Okay, so in 3rd place, we've got another great option for you, which is Panama. So I actually don't know that much about Panama, but housing has been scored 77 out of 100, healthcare 84, cost of living 78, and climate 80.
Yeah, I didn't know very much about it either, but I think this is going to be my next travel destination because I really want to see it for myself. So it's only about a 6-hour flight from Toronto, and I'm surprised I haven't heard more about people talking about retiring here.
Right, it's one of the safest and most modern countries in Central America. It's 9 degrees from the equator, which means that the weather is consistent all year round, and there aren't any hurricanes or monsoons, so it's basically 32 degrees Celsius every day.
And because of the consistent weather, they grow their own food year-round, so it's incredibly fresh and affordable too. And they offer one of the easiest residency visa programs in the world, called the Pensionado Visa. To qualify, you need to show that you have at least $1,000 in lifetime income, like a pension, Social Security, or military retirement. And within 6 months of applying, you will have a permanent visa.
Yes, and once you have the visa, you get a ton of discounts on basically everything. Discounts on dining out, travel, utilities, doctor visits, and medicine, and so much more. And if you have insurance, it's only $2 to see a doctor or $5 for a specialist like a cardiologist. I actually read about an expat who had emergency surgery at the public hospital after a car accident. The surgery in 10 days in the public hospital was less than $350 with no insurance.
Oh, wow.
And many expats don't get insurance because the cost for healthcare is so low. It's about $20 to see the doctor or $50 for a specialist.
Amazing. Okay, so the second best place to retire in on the list is Mexico. It scored 70 for housing, healthcare scored 82, cost of living is 92, climate is 86. And a bottle of Coke is really cheap here. So it's $1 compared to $2.50 for New York. And a one bedroom in the city center is $830. So completely reasonable. And I bet you it's more spacious than that $3,800 place in New York.
I know.
So one of my favorite places in the world is Mexico City. And in my opinion, it's completely underrated. And it's so close to us here in Toronto. And it's only a 4-hour flight away.
I know. You love it every time you've gone, and the food is so phenomenal. So several of my other friends say the same thing. It's beautiful, extremely cosmopolitan. Like I said, the food, the culture is amazing, and it's on my travel list for sure. So when my kids are a bit older, we're going there. And my brother actually has been doing this really interesting experiment. So he's been working from different countries for the winter, and this year he stayed at Playa del Carmen in Mexico. And so the last few months, he's been living there and just loving it. He's rented out his place in Toronto to somebody else. And now he's like, hey, I'm just going to live near the beach for the summer. And you know what's funny? He's not the only one. There's actually this whole community who does this from all over the world. And he made a ton of friends. I thought he would be lonely. I'm like, you don't know anybody there. We went there and he's like, no, I made all these friends. And they were taking tennis lessons together, just having fun.
It sounds like he's semi-retired now. I'm so envious of him. Okay, and in first place, according to the International Living Survey, Portugal is the best place in the world to retire in. They scored for housing 74, healthcare 92, cost of living is 85, and climate is 88.
I'm actually a huge fan of Portugal. I know you are too. It's another beautiful place, right? Very calm, peaceful. I would say definitely a slower pace of life. And I actually found that they're quite kid-friendly too. So especially if you're a tourist, if you have kids, you just skip the line everywhere.
This is great if you have grandkids that will visit you. Also in Portugal, you can choose between living in the city like Lisbon or by wine country in Porto. Or like so many people, they live by the beach in the Algarve region.
Or you can retire in what is frequently called Europe's Hawaii, the Azores.
I've seen the photos of it and it looks stunning.
Actually, you know what? I would go there even if I wasn't retiring.
Me too. Okay, one more thing. So even though you're using the euro in Portugal compared to the rest of Europe, it's quite affordable and you get access to modern amenities. It's known as the most affordable place to live in Western Europe. Plus, it gives you easy access to travel quite cheaply throughout the entire continent. So a bottle of Coke in Portugal will cost about $1.77 versus $2.50 in New York. And the one-bedroom apartment in the city center costs about $13.50.
And if you take into account the overall expenses, including groceries, which are much cheaper in Portugal, the cost of living in Lisbon is actually half, if you can believe it, that of New York City. And it's even 26% cheaper than living in Toronto. And if you choose to live by the beach, where most people choose to retire, it's even cheaper than that.
Yes, and a one-bedroom in the city center in the Algarve costs about $1,100.
And that leaves a ton of money for wine or port or, good food, whatever you're doing.
And if you're not a citizen of the EU, to retire in Portugal, you'll need to apply for one of two visas. So the first one is a temporary residence permit, which you can renew after 1 year. And once you've had 5 years of temporary residency, you can apply for permanent residency.
Right. The second visa is called a Golden Visa Resident Card. So you're basically applying for permanent residency right away. However, you do need a lot more money for this one. So you can either buy real estate that costs at least 500,000 euros or make some capital investment of at least 500,000 euros or transfer in 1.5 million euros or more.
And once you have your permanent residency, there's more benefits like free healthcare. And Portugal is known for their high standards in health and medicine. So you'll be in really great hands. Also, another benefit of permanent residency is that you can easily travel through the 27 European countries included in the Schengen area.
Not just Europe, Morocco is just a quick trip away, and I actually saw so many Europeans when I was traveling there. In fact, even though it's not on our list, Morocco is a strong favorite place for Europeans to retire. When I was traveling there a few years ago, I ran into the Swiss couple that had purchased a house by the beach and they were running an Airbnb.
That sounds beautiful. So after reviewing these 10 amazing countries, where do you think you'll retire, Monisha?
Probably Toronto. I have 2 kids, Shirley. Let's be realistic. What's yours?
I love traveling, so my goal is to live and experience as many places as possible. I would love to just hop from Airbnb and try out different cities.
Well, this wraps up our episode of the top 10 best and most affordable places to live in the world.
We hope you enjoyed this episode, and please share it with a friend. And let us know where you want to retire. DM us on Instagram or TikTok at Make It Shine Money, and don't forget to make it shine.
This little light of mine, yeah, I'm gonna make it shine, make it shine, make it shine, make it shine.
Any views or opinions represented in this podcast are personal and belong solely to the podcast creators and do not represent those of people, institutions, or organizations that the owner may or may not be associated with in professional or personal capacity unless explicitly stated.